各位观众朋友们，大家上午好，欢迎收看2019年国际汽联亚洲三级方程式锦标赛揭幕战的现场直播。我们现在是在马来西亚雪邦国际赛车场。那么在本周末的发车格上，我们将看到代表10支不同车队的17名天才车手，分为2个组别，为了共同的一个目标而奋斗，那就是冠军。那么在即将开始的这场揭幕战中，杆位发车的将是表现得非常出色的代表 Absolute Racing 的中国车手愉快。那么第2位和第3个发车格分别是被去年的年度车队总冠军的2位车手，日本车手 Yukio Sasahara 以及 Jack Duhan 占据。那么揭幕战变数究竟如何？话不多说，我们看比赛。菲利。
Hello and welcome to the live coverage of Formula 3 Asian Championship. Now we are at Sepang International Circuit here in Malaysia for the very first round of the new season. Today we have 17 cars and 10 teams going to compete on the same field. But the action is just minutes away, so stay with us. Okay, 谢谢。
Well, welcome to Sepang International Circuit for what promises to be another fantastic season of the F3 Asian Championship. We're looking at fine weather so far as the fact that it's not actually raining, but this is Sepang, this is Malaysia, it is tropical, so it can appear out of the blue, but so far we've been pretty lucky over the course of the last couple of days. There's been a little bit of pre-season testing, teams just getting themselves dialed in, but certainly it's going to be very interesting to see how things do play out during this opening race. 30-minute duration. We have 3 races across the course of this weekend. Of course, this kicks off the first round of what will be a stellar season for the F3 Asian Championship. We have race number 1, 30 minutes plus a lap for the leader potentially, depending on how things fall out. Race 2 will start this afternoon from 2:20 p.m. local time. The moment, in case you're watching from somewhere else in the world, as you can see the calendar on screen, it is 9:45 local time. So the scheduled start will be in around 15 minutes or 12 minutes as it turns out now. And we were into the opening round of the year. The third race will come at 1:50 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So we have a lot on the card for this weekend. Some of the teams taking the opportunity to go back down pit lane and just make sure they get themselves up to speed. Tata chassis, the Alfa Romeo engine, and of course the GT tyres, all the control formula, and that is one of the beauties of this particular category. In this part of the world, F3 Asia really is a stepping stone onto the worldwide stage. Of course, for this region, for a number of drivers, this is the pinnacle of the sport for open wheelers. But as the region emerges, it is growing into a hotbed of GT competition. Touring cars and, of course, prototype sports cars are emerging in Asia as an opportunity for some of these young drivers. When we talk young drivers, the bulk of the field will be below 20 years of age. We will get into that. A very, very interesting qualifying list. Now, we talked qualifying yesterday. It's the final result of qualifying number 1, which will set the grid for this first race. Absolute Racing took the top spot, the Ducao, with a 2:5.36. Sasahara in the high-tech Dragon GP entry. Of course, they are the reigning champions in this category from 2018. It's position number 2, just 4/100ths of a second slower. It was a stellar qualifying session. It was very, very impressive. Jack Doohan, the young Australian, in the second of the entries for High Tech Grand Prix, of course, the English operation that has had so much success in past years in Europe, as the Malaysian flag flies proudly above the main grandstand. There's a little bit of wind around today. That shouldn't affect teams too much. It's not a heavy wind, it's a light wind. Some of the palms blowing in the background. It is going to be a hot day in the office for these drivers. So Jack Doohan, position 3. Jamie Chadwick, who is in the new W Series. She is in the 7 Grand Prix entry. She qualified in position number 4, just 0.6 of a second off the pace and only 0.3 of a second behind Jack Doohan. Now, the name Doohan to many people will mean something. Of course, Michael Doohan, Jack's father, multiple 500cc Grand Prix world champion, one of the legends of world motorsport. So haven't seen Mick this weekend. I'm assuming he's somewhere down there with his son, of course, backed by the Red Bull Racing operation. So he is one of their young stars. Eshan Peiris from Sri Lanka in position number 5. Position number 6, Brendan Leach from New Zealand for the Black Arts Racing Team. That's a great result for him. Of course, he's come out of Formula Toyota Series in his home country, which is a very popular championship in the off-season. When we talk off-season, of course, there was the Winter Series for a number of these teams and drivers, which really did prepare them very, very well for this season. Did give the opportunity for drivers in Europe during their off-season to come to this part of the world. Winter in Malaysia, well, it's not too different to the way conditions are right now. So we will be going down on the grid very, very shortly, and I gather we will be hearing from the pole sitter, Duke Howe.
Hey, Cao Ruo, congratulations for the pole position. So what do you think is the important thing for you to win this race today?
Before in the Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I'm very working hard with my team, Absolute. And these 3 days, I'm do a lot of training, and this is and today I'm in the pole station start, and I think this is amazing thing.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with the race. Yeah. 那刚刚呢，我问到曹卓，他是头位发车，他今天呢获胜的秘诀在哪？如果要获胜的话，他有一些什么特别需要注意的地方？他说到呢，他在周1、周2、周3的时候都对车辆进行了测试。Absolute Racing 的车队呢也是把车调教的非常的好。那么他今天呢就要保持非常快的车速，然后争取拿到第1名。
Thank you, Feline. Always great to get the drivers' insights from the grid as they prepare for what will be an interesting race. Of course, we often talk about the red mist with drivers, and that's where experience can actually help you with a little bit of maturity to not be so flustered if you don't get the perfect start off the line. If somebody manages to take your position away, you have to pick your moment to fight back. It's often why we see with a field of youngsters, they get tangled up in their first few corners as they're battling for position, because quite honestly, the first couple of corners is a big guide as to how the race will play out, because often that is your only real opportunity to make up an opportunity to take a pass fairly quickly, because everybody is so closely bunched. So you have to balance that with taking a risky move. Everybody that watches F1 sees this all the time. This is why these incidents happen so quickly, because by the time the field spreads out in a single file and starts punching out laps, it's a lot more difficult to find those extra seconds or half seconds to be able to make a move and get further forward in the field. So it's all going to happen on the run down to turn 1. It looks like Feline's down there now with Ukyo Sashihara for the High-Tech Grand Prix team, who set the second fastest time in the number 1 entry, just 4/100ths of a second slower than the pole sitter.
Hi, Yuki. So you are the second on the grid now. Is there any strategy for you for the start? Like when you start, is there a strategy and so you can take the lead, or is there anything you are planning to do today?
Sorry, to be honest, I couldn't really hear the last part about your question.
So, I would like to ask, because you are now second on the grid, is there after the green light, and what's your plan after the green light?
Yeah, the plan, I think the best way is just straight away to be on first place and see what happened on the race, because it was my first race with the Asian F3 Championship, so I don't really know what's gonna happen to be honest. So let's see, and hopefully we could finish the good position in the end. So I would try best for the team. Yeah.
Good luck with the race. Yeah. 那刚刚我问到 Yuki 呢，因为他是在第2位发车，那么在绿灯亮起的时候他会怎么做？他说他其实不知道到时候会发生一些什么，不过呢他希望能在第1圈的时候达成超车，这样的话可以最后以冠军完赛。
Another thing experience will teach you is perhaps the best way to adjust to being asked an interview whilst you're sitting on the grid trying to get your head programmed into exactly what you need to do as the race starts and you fire down to turn 1. That's all a part of it. You often see in Formula One there is so much going on the grid before the start of a race. A driver has to factor that in. So for these young guys, why you could think, well, perhaps maybe not now is the time to talk to them, this is valuable and vital experience for them in order to prepare for what will come as they build a career in motorsport. And quite honestly, the drivers that make it through to something like the F3 Asian Championship, they are focused on a career in this sport. So this is all part of what they need to deal with and how they need to adjust. Again, the red mist, it's something we talk about in motorsport all the time. It's the fact that you might talk about a strategy before a race, plan what you should do, plan when you should make a move. But basically, once the flag starts and the adrenaline starts pumping, that all gets thrown out the window. And it really just comes down to a dogfight between a couple of drivers. So interesting to see how this one plays out as we get set for what will be a start for the opening round of the season, the second season of the F3 Asian Championship, certified by the FIA. And we look forward to how the coming year will play out. A lot of talented drivers. Here we are at the grid. We're back to row 3. Isham Peiris and Brendan Leach from New Zealand. Row 4 of the championship. Tomoki Takahashi and Jordan Dempsey, the reigning F4 champion in the region, the Irish driver, alongside the Japanese super license entry for his second season of the F3 Asian Championship. They will start from row 4. Good solid field of entries, 17 cars. Akash Gowda, who was here last year with M Sport Asia, and the second of the super license drivers this year, Yu Kanemaru, I apologise. New season also means for the commentator to get his head around all the different drivers and the new teams and the new entries. Tommy Smith, a young Australian for Pinnacle Motorsport, alongside Kwa Yu, Zen Motorsport driver from China. Great to see a steady flow of young Chinese drivers through to what is the leading open wheel championship in the region. Tom Beckhauser, the Czech driver for Black Arts Racing, and Thomas Ludi, who is a veteran of this style of racing and a very welcome addition back to Black Arts Racing. He's done a lot of miles based in Hong Kong these days and really does love his open wheel formula. And there's nothing better than an F3 car on a big open circuit, F1 circuit like this one. The two BMAX Racing Team entries, Yamaguchi, the younger of the two drivers, and of course Dragon, who is instrumental in the development of young drivers in his home country. Dragon is a big part. His BMAX operation has been supporting all kinds of equipment from GT down to development formula like the F3 Asia Championship. They are back on row number 8. And rear field, Paul Wong for the 852 Challenges by Zen Motorsport operation. Of course, he is a name that pops up quite regularly in the one-make Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia Championship. And there's nothing better than these cars. You might be running around in some of the GT cars, but certainly you hear when you talk about the careers of successful drivers that go-karts were instrumental in developing the basic racing tactics. This formula is certainly the next step of that, of being able to work on aerodynamics, work on grip, so mechanical grip, aero grip. These are the sorts of things that you don't really have with an F3 car. So it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting season.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Welcome to 2019
F3
Asian Championship.
Certified by FIA.
new season, 17 cars,
10 teams, 4 categories, one same goal, the championship.
the championship.
The championship.
Are you ready? Let's go.
And go it is for the opening event of the 2019 F3 Asian Championship, certified by the FIA. It's going to be a very, very interesting race. some of these drivers a little bit fresh. This will be their kickoff for the season. Others have had the benefit of racing in the winter series here in Asia, in these very cars, in some of these very cars. So they will be ready to go. One of those, Jack Doohan, very, very impressive on his debut in the winter series. So we'll see how he goes. He's on the second row. He was the pace setter early during practice and will certainly be one to watch, the young Australian, in the number 2 entry. Just checking because numbers need to register in the brain. Tsukio Sashihara in the number 1 entry for High Tech Grand Prix. Jack Doohan in the number 2 entry for High Tech Grand Prix. Jordan Dempsey, young Irish driver for Pinnacle Motorsport Car 3. Guai Yu for Zen Motorsport, Chinese driver in Car 4. Daniel Cow, who's starting from pole position, the number 5 entry for Absolute Racing. And they are a big name in this part of the world. Tomoki Takahashi for Super License is Car 7. Yu Kanamura is Car 8 for Super License. Thomas Ludi, car number 9 for Black Arts Racing. Eshan Pires for Absolute Racing now, the Sri Lankan driver, car number 15. Thomas Smith, the young Australian for Pinnacle Motorsport, car number 16. Taruku Yamaguchi for BMAX Racing, car 28. Dragon, car 30. Akash Gowda, car 33 for M Sport Asia. Paul Wong for the 852 Challengers by Zen Motorsport entry is in car number 44. Jamie Chadwick, W Series successful driver. She will make her debut in that championship very, very soon when that kicks off. 7 Grand Prix. She's car number 77. Brendan Leach, the young driver from New Zealand, car number 86 for Black Arts Racing. And Tom Beckhauser, the Czech driver for Black Arts Racing, starting from a bit further back in the grid, starting from position 13, row number 7. He is car number 95. So 5, 1 and 2 are your first 3 cars in this field. Cow, Sashihara and Jack Doohan. It will be interesting to see. Just getting a little bit of temperature into the Control GT tyres. They have proven to be very, very successful. It was a great formula last year. And certainly this was one of the benchmark formulas for the new formula of F3. Of course, the rollover hoop signifies that this is very much one of the modern era of open wheel race cars. And very big side intrusion panels too, to stop the kind of incident that can have a big impact on teams and drivers. So they are driving one of the safest new formulas that are possible to put on a race circuit. So very much these cars are the future of the competition. GT tyres, Tata chassis, and of course the Alfa Romeo engine that has been so successful last season. The formula has carried through to 2019. We saw some great racing last year, and of course an F1 circuit like this really does promote very, very good close racing. Field getting ready to go. Whatever they've done to get the tyres up to temperature, it's done. Now is the time. It will take a couple of laps to actually get the tyres to the optimum working temperature. So there's a little bit of skating around to start with. You can balance that with your tyre pressures only very, very slightly. It comes an awful lot down to car control. So left of screen is the pole sitter. That's Cow alongside Sashihara in the High Tech Grand Prix entry. Let's see how this one plays out. We get ready for a start. 5-second board. Engine revs are up. Race director getting ready with the lights. And we're underway with the opening round of the season for the F3 Asian Championship. And a great start off the pole. It's getting very, very racy. Difficult to see with the early morning sun shining down to the cars as they come into turn number 1. Very demanding part of the circuit. You don't want to go too wide here. Certainly not in an open wheeler. One of the cars running a little bit further wide. It's one of the Absolute Racing entries. May well have been Eshampiris. The very iconic colours of Absolute Racing. The timing monitor will update very, very shortly. Give us a correct order as we pick those new liveries. There's no denying or discounting the look of the high-tech Grand Prix entries. They dominated the championship last year, were very, very successful. That is the 2 super license entries, the red and white cars further back in the field. And that'll be a great battle between Kanamura and Takahashi. But at the moment, The pole sitter cow is leading the field around. Sahara in position number 2. Jack Doohan in position number 3. Very little separating them. Position number 4 up to Isham Puris. He made a great start off the line. He qualified in position number 5. Position number 5 at the moment, Jamie Chadwick. So she's dropped back a position 2 as Isham Puris has taken that away from her. Brendan Leach in position number 6. Takahashi in position number 7. And Jordan Dempsey is shown in position number 8. 30-minute race duration. That is the standard formula for this championship. And what a championship it will be this year. It is the 86 entry, Brendan Leach under fire from Takahashi by the look of that. Well, he may have dropped further back. Traditionally the white and red livery is super license. You see them a little bit further back in the field. So timing monitor still updating. We'll get that shortly. There's a great battle towards the front of the field. That is nice to see. So we come to the line. We'll get some great indication of what's going on. It was Sasha Haru who got the start from Jack Doohan. Cow, in fact, dropped back to position number 3. So excuse me as I get used to the new liveries. Brendan Leach up to position number 4. Pierce drops back to position 5. Akash Gowda has had an absolute cracker off the start from position 9 up to position number 6. Jamie Chadwick, unfortunately, has been the big loser. Back to position 7 after qualifying in position number 4. Get a close look at the cars further back. There's no doubt the absolute racing livery. So the number 1 entry, Sashihara, the Japanese driver for High Tech Grand Prix, is leading the field around. His teammate Jack Doohan in position number 2, 1.7 seconds back. That is the 86 entry, the pink colours of Jack Doohan, alongside Isham Puris, the number 15 entry. Akash Gowda in position number 6 in the blue entry further back. Jamie Chadwick back to position number 7. Winner of the MRF series, the first female winner of that championship in India recently. It put her into the field to qualify for the grid for the new W series, which will begin not too far down the track from now. First lap off the start, flying that 2:04.4 to Sashihara to open up a 1.7 second lead as Jack Doohan work his way through from the second row of the grid to be second in this race. High Tech Grand Prix picking up where they left off in season 2018 with the front 2 running positions. Absolute Racing with position number 3. The pole sitter cow back to 3rd. It's 2.4 seconds off, just 7/10 off the tail of Jack Doohan. That is the super license entries. They are battling for positions number 7 and 8. So Takahashi has dropped back off his starting position. And Kanamura has actually gone further up. And he's up to position number 8. Tommy Smith, the young Australian, on his debut, is in position number 9. In fact, he's position number 10. Jordan Dempsey is position number 11, the reigning F4 champion for the region. So very much a progressive development for open wheel formula as the number 1 entry proudly displayed by Ukyo Sashihara. He is in position number 1 and he's opened that lead up to a 1.9 second advantage over young Jack Doohan. So Sashihara a 2:01.69 last time round, Doohan a 2:01.84, and they were the only drivers in the 2:01s. 2:02 for pole sitter cow. Number 3 entry, sorry, number 5 entry, the pole sitting entry from Absolute Racing. Good battle, the 77 of Jamie Chadwick. And the 33 is under fire. Well, she's taken the position away from Akash Gowda, so that's actually from position 6. She's made the move forward. And Takahashi behind her, getting all kinds of sideways coming through the mid part of the circuit. So for Jamie Chadwick, this is important miles for her in the kind of car that she was running in the W Series. So this is valuable extra laps. Tommy Smith back to position 11. So Jordan Dempsey's taken a move forward. So Tommy Smith, the young Australian, the Pinnacle Motorsport entry, has just lost a position just last time round. So the super license entries are starting to close in on this battle now. So Jamie Chadwick will be hoping to get away. Akash Gowda under fire now from Takahashi. He's just further forward. Isham Puris is trying to do what he can to get back onto the tail of Brendan Leach, who's moved forward from the 3rd row. He's qualified in position number 6, now up to position number 4. 24 minutes to go on the clock. And Sasha Hara continues to lead this field. It'd be nice to have splits to determine at different parts of the circuit where the other drivers are, but we get a refresh of the screen at the end of every lap. It's a tad unfortunate, but certainly nicer to have than not. There's a good battle going further back. It looks like it's Tommy Smith and Dempsey. It's further back again. It's the 16. That is Tommy Smith. It does look like the 3 of Jordan Dempsey, so may have been a change there too in position. So there has been another. We saw Jamie Chadwick taking Akash Gowda. She is up to position number 6. Gowda back to position number 7. And that's the battle that we're looking at on screen. So it's Chadwick, Gowda, Takahashi and Kanemaru, his super licensed team at the front of the field. Well, Jack Doohan's closed that down. I was going to say, that looks closer. It is closer. Last time round, Doohan did a 2:02 dead. So they're not running in 2:01s now. It looks like they've got the peak out of the tyre on just the 2nd lap. So, 3rd lap rather. This is on to the 4th lap. 1.176 seconds. Down to thousandths of a second right at the moment. But that is the actual calculated gap as they crossed the line last time round. And Jack Doohan is starting to close in on his teammate. Certainly Jack Doohan, supported by Red Bull. No real surprise there, given the heritage he has, but he is marked as one of the young stars of the future in this part of the world. That's him on screen. Different livery to that which we saw for him during the Winter Series. We'll get more used to those as we get around. Unfortunately, the direction of the sun here at Sepang this morning makes it very difficult with the glare to pick the liveries of each of the cars. But there's no denying the style and the colour of the high-tech Grand Prix operation. Silver team with a little bit of red flash. It's the livery they took to a great deal of success in the maiden season of the F3 Asian Championship by the FIA. The number 2 entry is Jack Doohan. He's certainly sparked up his livery. Flashes of black and fluoro orange. Chukau still there in position number 3 for Absolute Racing. Absolute Racing has been a real sensation in the development of young drivers across the Asian region for many years. They have 2 cars inside the top 5. Fabian Fior down there directing the team. Leading Gomata, who are the hierarchy at Absolute Racing, have been behind the success and development of a lot of young drivers, of course, not just open wheelers, but certainly into GT Formula. Okay, so we have somebody in pit lane. That's Tom Beckhauser. So dramas for the young Czech driver. Can't quite see. I think he is still in the car. So we see down pit lane. Nope, can't see anything at the minute from my vantage point above the main straight. But that's frustration for him. So 1/3 down in this race. Sahara controls the field, 1.3 second advantage. He's pulled another couple of tenths out of Jack Doohan that last lap. 2:02.4 to a 2:02.6, 2:02.5 for Cal in the number 5 entry for Absolute Racing in position number 3. Brendan Leach position 4. He's 3 seconds back from the leading trio. That is Brendan Leach. Nishan Puris immediately behind him with 0.4 of a second separating those two. In fact, I think it's a bit less than that now. That is the 86 and the number 15 entry, battling for position number 4. Jamie Chadwick holding comfortably onto position number 6 now. She is 1.8 seconds up on Akash Gowda. So the M Sport Asia driver unable to improve there. Locks the right front, does Puris as it comes into turn 14. Takahashi, the super licensed driver, he is only 0.3 of a second off the tail now of Akash Gowda, so that one's getting close. Kanemaru has dropped back a little bit. Jordan Dempsey a second further back from there. Guai Yu in his Zen Motorsport entry, position number 11, ahead of Tommy Smith. Yamaguchi, Thomas Ludi, Dragon and Paul Wong. Unfortunately, it's like Tom Beckhauser is not going to take any further part in this race. So typically of a Formula One designed circuit, it's all about high to mid-speed corners. That's where the test comes. Okay, so this is a very dramatic opening stanza of the lap. Through the tight right-hander, a little bit off camber, into the tight left-hander that sweeps around through the fast turn 3, down to the big stop at turn 4. But that really does test the drivers from this point on in the circuit. It's very much about how hard you can lean on your aero, how hard you can push the grip of the Control GT tyre, and how late you're willing to brake without locking a tyre to try and make some sort of advantage. But it's sweeping corners like this and fast changes of direction. This is the thing that really tests the pro drivers versus the amateur drivers. This is where you will see the drivers who are at the top of their game really eke out an advantage. Very difficult through there. A bit of a four-wheel drift for Brendan Leach. He's just letting the momentum of the car carry through the corner. It is a very hard compound GT tyre. That's important because then it doesn't come down to a battle of tyre wear. These tyres can do the distance, no problem. You can make adjustments slightly to tyre angles, cambers and casters, but also to tyre pressures. And depending on where you start the tyre pressures, the tyre temperature can come up a little bit quicker or a little bit slower. You might want the tyre to come on a little bit more later in the race and take your advantage there, knowing that in the early laps, if you're stuck midfield, you're not going to make up a position. So that's one way you can eke out an advantage when you have an identical formula, identical tyres, identical cars, identical engines. So your advantage comes from driver ability and can come from little things. It can only be hundredths or thousandths of a second, but can come from little things like adjusting tyre pressures and angles. So you see often drivers come into pit lane and the tyre technicians will jump very quickly. Not just the team technicians, but the engineers for GT will jump on the tyres and check those temperatures to make sure that they're at their optimum working pressures and temperatures. Temperatures more so than pressures. They will mark all of that and log it, and then chart that against lap times, against the data from the cars to determine just what the optimums are for each driver. Because each driver's different. The piece between the steering wheel and the headrest does have a big impact on the performance of those cars. So that's something that drivers can work on too, whether psychologically, fitness is a very, very big part. These cars are very hard and very physical to drive, but that is part of the development of drivers to get through their careers, perhaps into something like a prototype car or maybe even F1. There have been drivers from the Asian region go through to the pinnacle of world motorsport, through F3, F2 and now into F1. Daniel Ricciardo is one of those. There have been a number of them across the years, and there is no real doubt that there will be drivers in this field that you might be calling through on the grid on Formula One in the years to come. So Sahara, 1.6 seconds, 2:03s now. So they've dropped off the 2:01s and 2:02s. They're into the low 2:03s. Jack Doohan, 2:03.3, lost 0.3 to his teammate last time round. Cow back in position number 3, 2:03.0. So he's actually the fastest man on track last time round. Brendan Leach, 2:03.1, 2:03.3 for Champiris. So the top 5 drivers in the field currently circulating within about 0.2 of a second. So that's pretty much locked off, but that's over 7.5 seconds. Jamie Chadwick now 5 seconds back from Ishan Piras and 5 seconds up on Takahashi in the super license entry. Brendan Leach still under fire from Ishan Piras, but he's managed to control it so far. Now we're almost halfway through this race and he comfortably has that position. Gowda, well, he's dropped back now after battling with Jamie Chadwick early in the piece, and I think he was as high as position number 5, certainly position number 6. He's now dropped back to position number 8, so he split the two the two super license entries. Well, having said that, Kanemaru has just gone straight past him and taken him for position, and Akash Gowda is continuing to fall back, so potentially a problem for the M Sport Asia driver. No problems for the number 1 entry, Sahara, for High Tech Grand Prix. 3rd in the 2018 Japanese F3 Championship, raced at the Macau Grand Prix. He was 2nd in the F4 Japanese Championship in 2017 and raced 6 races in the F3 European Championship in 2016. So good experience in Europe. The Japanese driver is very nearly 23 years of age, so he's very much a veteran by terms of age of drivers. Jack Doohan, by contrast, he is 17, so 16 years of age, if my math serves me. 3 races and 2 podiums in the Asian Winter Series at the start of this year. top rookie in the F4 British Championship last year. And has been very competitive in karts, certainly in Australia. As a champion in juniors, KO Junior and KO2. So a very experienced campaigner at that level. Been racing for many, many years. And of course, it's a bit hard not to be passionate about motorsport when your father's a multiple 500cc Grand Prix champion. Just trying to determine where we are looking now. So that's quite clearly Jamie Chadwick with the gap back. It's just under 6 seconds to Takahashi in the first of the super license entries. Talking to Rio Fukuda, former F1 test driver and a superstar in his own right in his home country, was a real star in F3 in Japan. He is very instrumental in the development of this super license team. I spoke to him the other night and asked him how things were going. He said, well, it's a work in progress, but we're moving forward, and that's all we can hope for at this stage. A great opportunity for some of these young Japanese drivers to venture outside of Japan and prepare themselves for a career. Of course, very strong open wheel categories in Japan. Good development formula even to run through to the top formulas in that part of the world. Very strong culture of motorsport in Japan. It also makes it very difficult to develop your career in some of those formulas because there is just so much competition. Again, another reason why the F3 Asian Championship is so vital to this part of the world. So we are 8 laps in the books. The number 1 entry for High Tech Grand Prix. Sahara is in position number 1. Jack 2 in position number 2. Jukau in the Absolute Racing number 5 entry is position number 3. Brendan Leach position 4. Isham Puris position number 5 for Absolute Racing. 7GP entry Jamie Chadwick is in position number 6. Naoki Takahashi position number 7. Maru in position number 8 for Super License. Akash Gowda position number 9. Pinnacle Motorsports Jordan Dempsey in the number 3 entry. He is the reigning China F4 champion, making his debut in Formula 3 equipment this weekend. Is in position number 10. Guai Yu for Zen Motorsport, the Chinese driver, in position number 11. Tommy Smith is in position number 12. The number 16 entry. 16 years of age, so very young competitors. Shampiris was 6th in the Asian Winter Series last year, using some of that experience to try and work his way forward. So no change. It's been relatively processional, and that's no bad thing. It's the first race of what will be a big season of competition. Certainly these drivers will be getting themselves organised as the year rolls through. 15 races in all. We are at Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. We go to Chang International Circuit, Buriram in Thailand, for the second event of the year for races 4 and 6. That's between May 11 and 12. June 22 to 23, the iconic Suzuka Circuit in Japan, and everybody's looking forward to that one. A strong history with open wheel competition. Of course, some of the most iconic moments in F1 coming at the Suzuka Circuit in Japan. June 22-23 for races 7 to 9. September 7 to 8, Shanghai International Circuit in China for the 4th round, races 10 to 12. And the season finale again at Shanghai International Circuit just 3 weeks later, September 27 to 28 for races 13 to 15. Now Yamaguchi has dropped a position. Looks like Thomas Ludi in the Black Arts Racing entry has moved up to position 13. It's the 9 car on field. We're just talking about him. Yamaguchi dropping back. That should be Dragon. The number 30 entry. It certainly is for the BMAX Racing team. Of course, in the Masters category, Ludi, Yamaguchi, Dragon, Paul Wong battling for Masters honours. That's a great addition to the field. Masters, of course, signalling that they aren't teenagers. A little bit more experience, shall we say, in life, and having their own competition. Good to see them all grouped together and fighting hard. 2.1 seconds now at the lead. Half a second advantage to the leading car 1 entry last time round. Across the line again. It's fairly stationary, 1.8 seconds the lead. A second back to Cow in number 5 entry. Brendan Leach in position number 4. Ishan Puris in position number 5. Now, this is interesting. under investigation for abuse of track limits. Cars 8, 16, 3, 7, 86, 32 and 28. There's the bulk of the field for you. So a little bit of work to do for the stewards. We'll see how that one goes. Interestingly, Fukio Sashihara is not in that list. So he's turning out comfortable laps, nearly 2 seconds up on Jack Doohan. He is a part of that list. Cow in the Absolute Racing entry is also not on that list. Brendan Leach is. Mishan Pires not. Jamie Chadwick is not. So let's hope that doesn't have too big an impact. Of course, this circuit being a wide open F1 circuit does provide opportunities for some use of the outside of the circuit as this battle between Thomas Liudi and Toroku Yamaguchi goes on. Immediately ahead of them, that should be 16-year-old Australian, the number 16. It certainly is, Tommy Smith. So he's getting some kind of baptism of fire from the drivers behind him. Racing the Toyota Racing Series and did a little bit of F4 earlier this year. Ran in the Australian F4 Championship for a couple of races and has done some Formula Ford in Australia. That was very much an instrumental open wheel category. It was not about wings and slicks. That was very much about learning mechanical grip, more of an R-spec grooved tyre, very narrow, and ubiquitous 1600cc or 2-litre Ford power plants and no wings. So that gave drivers an opportunity to learn how to drive the car without the wings. Then the obvious progression from there was something like F3. A lot more power, a lot of aero and a lot of grip with those control slick tyres. For this category, for the F3 Asian Championship, that is the GT tyre, which has been a great support to the F3 Asian Championship since its inception last year. And great to see the second year following on from what was a strong winter series, the off-season for many drivers around the world who gave themselves the opportunity to come to this part of the globe and turn laps during much warmer weather. Certainly the off-season in Europe is not the time people are looking to spend time at the circuit. Oh, that's drama. What's happened there? Now, that is further down the field. It's the 28 entry, perhaps, of Yamaguchi. Now, he was tied up in a battle. We're watching just briefly there with Thomas Liudi. Yeah, Toroku Yamaguchi's in all kinds of trouble. There's been contact. That's down at turn 12. So a fast part of the circuit. Inevitably, if there's an opportunity to make a passing move, you need to make it. You need to make it stick. And that may be a sign of what has happened down at that part of the circuit. So dramas further back. That's Paul Wong. He is in the 852 Challengers by Zen Motorsport entry. Driver from Hong Kong, doing double duty this weekend with Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia. A long run down from turn 14 to the final corner. Well, the super licensed drivers aren't on that part of the circuit. That's suddenly got very interesting for position number 7. Kanemaru is back to just, well, half a dozen car lengths off the tail of his teammate. Getting very close to that part of the circuit where the yellow flags are. Yep. And unfortunately for Yamaguchi, BMAX Racing Team driver, the Masters classification, he will not be taking any further part in this race. Just over 5 minutes to go. The front of the field, it's equalised, very, very little in it. 2.2 seconds. There's somebody's hit pit lane. That's Thomas Liudi. That might tend to suggest there was some level of contact. Can we see that down there in pit lane? A little bit hard to see with that glare. You can see it just this part of the day, early in the piece on a race day at Sepang. The sun's quite low. The glare is quite intense. So it's very difficult to pick liveries. You can see rear on. The light's a lot nicer. It's very easy to see car colours, but there's the glare on the cars. Very difficult to pick numbers, helmets, liveries, pretty much anything. So it makes it a tad challenging. Not too much challenging for the race leader. He started on the front row, missed pole position by 4/100ths of a second. He's comfortably leading his high-tech Grand Prix teammate Jack Doohan by 2.2 seconds. 4 minutes to go. This is the battle further back. It's 33 of Gouda with Jordan Dempsey in number 3 entry. Positions number 9 and 10. A little bit too hard to see whether there is damage. Certainly the team looking at the rear of the car. Now those two cars were very close together, Yamaguchi and Thomas Ludi, just a lap before that incident. We went back to the leaders, rightly so. And it appears something has happened with the two of them. So Thomas Ludi brought himself down pit lane. Unfortunately for Yamaguchi, damage to the rear of the car. He wound up fairly deep in the gravel trap down at turn 12. So no further part for him, and there it comes. Incident at turn 9, as it turns out, between car 28 and car 9 will be investigated post-race. So typically, end of the race, results are very much provisional until it has been through officialdom to check the process to make sure that everybody has cleared through, done what they needed to do. We did see just earlier in this race, track limits were being stretched just a tad. Turn 8 is one part of the circuit that often sees the eye of the stewards. It's the double right-hander. You can carry a lot of speed into that corner, and because it is an F1 circuit, there is great runoff and an opportunity for drivers to maybe go too deep into 7 and carry that speed through turn 8. The runoff's there on the exit to go over the curb and keep your momentum on the run down to turn 9, and that can attract a penalty post-race if you do it enough. So the fact that it's being investigated is just that they want to go back through, look at the data, see what the cameras show down at that part of the circuit, talk to the corner marshals often to see what was going on, and then judge whether or not there will be any issue. So Takahashi has just punched out his fastest lap of the race. Fastest second sector, fastest third sector in that lap, 2:04.1. So the pace at the front of the field is only a 2:03.9 for Sashihara. His fastest lap, 2:01.6, so he and Doohan were the only drivers in the 2:01s. That was about lap 2 or 3. Doohan now, they've maintained the gap, and 8 to 9 tenths has been pretty much the gap between positions number 2 and 3, Jack Doohan and Fikau, the Absolute Racing team. Blackout's racing entry of Brendan Leach hasn't really dropped too far off the tail of that group. In fact, he's faster than the 3 drivers immediately ahead of him. He's 2.5 seconds down on the race leader. Hisham Pires has dropped off his tail a little bit, had closed in early. Jamie Chadwick is well back down now, but comfortably ahead of the 2 super licensed drivers that are battling over position number 7, Takahashi, ahead of Yu Kanemaru. Blue flag waving, so they must be coming up to some lap traffic. That could only be Paul Wong, I'd assume, at the moment. Last lap is being displayed. The clock shows a minute 19. So we are down to the final lap. High-Tech Grand Prix, High-Tech Dragon GP as they were last season. They were the champions. And they are going to come into the opening round at the moment as the drivers most likely, or as the team rather, most likely to take the top honours for the first round of the 2019 F3 Asian Championship. Sahara, the Japanese driver, has been flawless since the start. Got to the front and has controlled the race from that point. Both he and Doohan pushed as hard as they possibly could, with laps not too far off qualifying times. It was the pole time, 2 minute dead 5:36, and the fastest race came on about lap 2 or 3 to the race leading Sashihara High-Tech Grand Prix entry, 2:01.69. There is the super license entries. They are further back. Be interesting to see where the race leader is, and I assume this is him. Again, the glare makes it a little bit challenging to see. That is the number 1 entry for High-Tech Grand Prix as he comes through the final part of the lap. Sterling start to the season for the English operation. Have a base here at Sepang International Circuit, and rightly so. They've been very strong with the development of this formula. Heavily involved in the new W Series, for which Jamie Chadwick is earning valuable laps in that style of car. She is in position number 6 very, very comfortably. But the race leader, Sahara, he is in position number 1. Jack Doohan, marked as one of the stars of the region for the future, is in position number 2, unable to do anything about his teammate during the course of this race. The team will no doubt go away and look at setup, see where they can take some kind of advantage. But for the moment, for Sashihara, it is going to be victory in the first of 15 races for the 2019 season. The team erupts, and rightly so. What a great drive. Jack Doohan across the line in position number 2. Ducao in position number 3 for Absolute Racing. Brendan Leach across the line in position number 4, the New Zealander for Black Arts Racing. Isham Puris in position number 5 for Absolute Racing. 7GP's Jamie Chadwick, we're just talking about her, the new driver for the W Series, crosses the line. Position number 7, the super licensed drivers, nose to tail. Takahashi in position number 7, position number 8, Yukanamiru. Akash Gowda crosses the line in position number 9. There he is in the number 33 entry. Not too far behind, Jordan Dempsey, the China F4 champion, takes position number 10 for Pinnacle Motorsport. Guayu for Zen Motorsport in position number 11. We're waiting now for Tommy Smith, the young Australian, in the number 16 entry. He was just ahead of that great battle between Thomas Liudi and Hiroki Yamaguchi that saw dramas just a couple of laps ago down at turn 9. Here he is. That is Tommy Smith across the line for position number 12 on his debut in F3. A good result for him. Dragon for B-Max Racing comes to the line and takes position number 13 and top honours in the Masters class. Paul Wong has also finished. He is a lap down on these guys. In fact, he's a couple of laps down, so he spent a little bit of time in pit lane by the look of that. And the 852 Challengers by Zen Motorsport entry. He is the last classified finisher. We saw the retirement of Thomas Liudi, we're guessing, as a result of contact down at turn 9. Terako Yamaguchi is classified, obviously, position 16. And Tom Beckhauser made an early retirement. Let's take a look back at the opening round of the F3 Asian Championship for 2019. As we look at Jack Doohan on screen coming back. Here it is off the start. Lights go out. Look at the car right of screen. That is the number 1 entry. The Absolute Racing entry of Ducao, starting from pole position, fell back off the line. Doohan also worked his way through to get up to position number 2. A lot of challenging for position further back. Jamie Chadwick doing what she could to try and retain a front running position. Isham Puris was one of the big movers for Absolute Racing off the start. So he was really in that mix. There he is in the dark grey and green entry. That is Brendan Leach in the pink and black entry for Black Arts Racing, the young New Zealander. Good battle too further back. Brendan Leach had Isham Puris full in his mirrors for much of that race. They crossed the line not too far apart. A little bit of a brake lock up on the run down to turn 1. That was Puris for Absolute Racing. This was the real battle because it was very much a stabilised gap at the front of the field. Sahara, he got to the front off the line and he maintained about a 2-second gap. Both he and Doohan, the fastest 2 on the circuit for the first few laps, fastest for most of the race, but they retained that gap. This is as a result, we believe, of contact with Thomas Liudi. We didn't see that, but both of them are being invited to see the stewards post-race. And at the end, though, Sahara comfortably across the line. Jack Doohan position 2, Ducao in position number 3. Stabilised gap 2 seconds roughly, first to second, a second between second and third. Brendan Leach 5 seconds further back in position 4. What a great start to the season. Drivers coming in, teams celebrating down on Park, down in Park Ferme rather. No doubt Feline will talk to the drivers fairly shortly. And what a good start to the season that was. A long season ahead, 15 races for these drivers, 15 half-hour races, but this is a development formula. It's a hard tyre, it's a heavy car, it's very physical. In Malaysia, it's very warm. It's going to be warm throughout the season, but this is very testing for these drivers. You want a career in motorsport, this is the very stepping stone you need to take in order to build that career. Whether you decide to be in tin tops or open wheelers, this is where you need to be. And for many of these drivers, this is a perfect way to start the season. Certainly for the youngsters, I'm just looking down at Jack Doohan. He hardly even looks like he's turned a lap. Cowd just doing a good job too. The Absolute Racing driver, he started from pole position. He too looks very, very fresh. So that's been interesting. Anyway, it looks like we're down there with Feline. She's just about ready to go. And it will be interesting to hear exactly what Ukiyo Sashihara has to say as a result of his first race.
Hi, Ukiyo. Congratulations. Very good start from the beginning. Can you talk through the race?
Yeah, it was actually perfect start. Yeah, because I haven't really practiced yet, but it was lucky to have a good start. Then just I try to manage the tire to see how it's going because I have no experience. At the end, it was a bit tough because rear tire was degrading quite a lot, but still managed about the gap and happy like debut in F3 Asian Series, then first win straight away. So I'm quite happy that.
Congratulations, thank you. 刚刚我问到呢，Q 上呢，他今天的开始起步是非常的顺利。他也提到呢，他开始起步非常的漂亮，但是呢，他没有特别多的练习时间在这辆车里。不过呢，他还是在保持了非常好的车速，那一直拿到了最后的冠军。他也非常的开心能拿到这个赛季的第一个冠军。Back to you guys.
Thank you, Feline. Yeah, well, he can be very happy with that. Of course, you go back into his history. He's second in the F4 Japanese Championship in 2017, third in the Japanese F3 Championship in 2018. He comes to the new F3 Asian Championship and he becomes the winner first time out. He looks very fresh, looks very relaxed, looks very comfortable. The high-tech GP team, well, what better team would you want to race for? They have the success in this series. They are based here at Sepang International Circuit. They're very, very instrumental in the development of young junior Formula drivers and, of course, junior Formula categories like F3 and certainly GP3 in Europe, etc. So that is a great way for him to start his season. Jack Doohan just going across to shake him by the hand. That's a big part of it too. He will be disappointed. Like any driver that didn't win, you will always be disappointed and feel that you could have done more. But this is all part of learning. So the Japanese driver has paved the way for this year to be one of those to watch. He started from the front row and got his way through to the lead very, very quickly. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit more from the other drivers, but certainly that was a great way to open the account for the F3 Asian Championship for 2019. Promises to be a very, very good year. So a very, very good result in the end. So for High-Tech GP, first and second. Absolute Racing in position number 3. They've stolen my timing monitor, so I can't give you any more positions beyond that. But certainly the racing was very good. The Super Formula drivers, we're talking to Rio Fukuda just a couple of days ago, talking about that is a development process for that team. 2 young Japanese drivers without an awful lot of experience. This is a great chance to do that. Of course, we're talking about the strength of championships around the world. Japan has a great motor racing culture. Very difficult to break into some of those formulas. So it's perfectly placed, the F3 Asian Championship, to bring drivers from other parts of the region. Certainly there's drivers from Europe, drivers from Australia, and let them build experience. They race on F1 circuits. They race in testing conditions. They race a car that is identical predominantly to those being raced around the world in similar formula. This is very much a transitional category through to a career in motorsport. So another great start to the year. It's the second season of the F3 Asian Championship certified by the FIA. And we look forward to what will be a strong year. Don't leave us just yet. We will go through to the podium presentation. We may hear a little bit more from the drivers. 3 races this weekend, 3 30-minute races. The second of those will come this afternoon at 2:20 p.m. Currently, it is 10:45 a.m. roughly, local time here in Malaysia. So just under 4 hours' time, we will be back in action for race 2 of 15 for the 2019 season. So stick with us. Make sure you join us on the website too, www.f3asia.com. Stick with all the platforms in both Chinese and, of course, in English, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And we will keep you up to date across the course of the season with all the action from the F3 Asian Championship. Not too long until we get to the podium. There'll be a little bit of celebration. It shouldn't be too much champagne, so they don't need to be consuming any of that, certainly not in these conditions. But they don't need to be drowning their probably solitary race suit to get themselves into a sticky position to sit in the car for the second race. We will get to that very, very soon. But let's get across to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're now having the podium ceremony for 2019 Formula 3 Asia Championship, certified by FIA Race 1. Now let's welcome our top 3 winners. Winner of Race 1, car number 1 from High-Tech Grand Prix, Yukio Sasahara. number 5 from Absolute Racing, Now it's my honor to invite Mr. Jojo Kama, head of motorsport automobile number 50 and member of NIA System Commission to present the trophy to the winner. Now I invite Mr. Masahiko Ida, president of PT Holdings Limited, to present the trophy to second place. Now I invite Mr. David Bobby, general manager of Property Shanghai Limited, to present the trophy to third place. Now let's have a group photo. Now, Joes, shooting time!
Well, there you have it. That was the F3 Asian Championship season opener for 2019. A great start to the season. High-Tech Grand Prix, a 1-2. That's a good way to open their account. Race 1 of 15. Of course, we have a second race coming this afternoon. That will happen at 2:20 p.m. local Malaysian time. Still be very warm. Won't be so sticky. The boys are a little subdued with their champagne celebrations. So that's great from that perspective. Nothing worse than sitting in a sticky cockpit, smelling a champagne, although it might spur you on to want to do it again. They have 2 more races across this weekend, 3 30-minute races. We are into the second podium. We will keep you up to date. Stick with us and make sure you join us this afternoon.
Now let's have the podium ceremony for Master Cup winners. Winner of Master Cup, car number 30 from BMAX Racing Team, Dragon. Second place of Master Cup, car number 44 from 852 Challengers, Paul Wang. Now it's my honor to invite Mr. Jojo Sona, head of motorsport automobile Lamborghini and member of FIA Single Season Commission, to present the trophy to the winner. Now let's invite Mr. Masahiko Ida-san, president of PT Holdings Limited, to present the trophy to second place. Now let's have group photo.
So there you have it. Thank you for joining us for the opening race of the 2019 F3 Asian Championship here from Sepang International Circus. Join us in just under 4 hours for race 2 of the weekend. Race 3 comes tomorrow. It's going to be a great season.
Congratulations to the overall top 3 finishers. I'd like to start with the Podium. Congratulations on your win of the first race. Talk us through about your start. You seem to be off the line extremely fast.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't expect that because of practice that wasn't really showed up about that. But yeah, just managed to be good start. So I was happy to be first straight away because then I could manage the gap from the behind. Yeah, so it was good start. Yeah.
Also, how do you feel in the new car with the halo? Seems to be adapting pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, didn't really. I mean, I don't feel any, weird feeling or strange feeling like that. I was quite happy that just the jump form was a little bit different style, but yeah, was fine.
Jack, congratulations on second. Next to your teammate on pace. For race 3, you're on pole. Are you confident with your teammate behind you?
Yeah, I think if I can get away good, manage the tyres, I think we should have pretty good pace. The race one there, I didn't think I was completely happy with how the overall pace was, but luckily I've got Yukio in my team, so I'll be able to analyse where I was losing and try and build on that for race 2 and race 3. Thanks.
Daniel, congratulations on third. Tell us about your start.
My start not so good because in the warm laps I didn't get a tire temperature, and so the start my station go to the third, and the 30-minute race to high-tech drivers quite fast. Our race time is like almost the same, so it's hard to catch them.
All the best for race 2 and 3 this weekend. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Group photo. Yep.
Stand up. Yes.
Picture.
With your and if you need it.
Welcome to the press conference of the Formula 3 Asian Championship, the Masters class. Congratulations to the top 2 finishers. We'll start with Dragon. Congratulations on your win. How was it to come back and straight away win the first race?
キーで勝ったんですけど、でもまあ
レースはラッキーで勝つことができたんですけど、まあ、いずれにしても、最初のレースで勝ったっていうことは、運がいいっていうことなので、素直に喜びたいと思います。
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm so happy, and first time the race is very lucky. And thank you so much with the Formula V, and then I hope any more lucky other ways. Thank you.